Hello everybody, it's me, Nate, aka Devil Dog, and this time I'm back with a complete walkthrough for the first dungeon that you'll come across in the Stormblood expansion. This is the Sirensong Sea, and it is a level 61 dungeon. This does have some different mechanics as you go through the game level, but all in all, nothing that you should not be really used to since you've been playing this game for quite a long time. There are some new mechanics that are thrown in during the boss battles, and I will go over them once they occur. But at the very start of the level, what you want to do is pretty much kill these first guys, the Banshees. After this set of Banshees is destroyed, some new ones will pop in from the side as well. It is actually best to kill these guys in this area right here because you still have one of your NPC members with you, and he will actually do some damage as well and help kill them. Not that it's really difficult as long as you know your basic rotations, and you have a decent tank that pretty much pulls the aggro of them. You'll have no problem in beating these guys. They're they don't really pose too much of a threat at all. And as you see, as you go through and you burn down the first set of them, a new set will appear off the sides of the boat and jump in. Like I said, you got Alphanol there. As long as you stay in this area, he will actually help you attack and kill them, which is really odd. It'd be nice if they would show up like later on and help you, but not a big deal. But all in all, that's all you have to deal with for this first set of trash mobs is these Banshees, and then it will progress to the next part. Alright, now you'll come across some other ads as you go along. This guy, the Ancient Yrmir, or whatever his name is, kind of a dumbed down version of a boss that you fought, I think, in Hullbreaker Isle. He doesn't really have any of the same effects, any of the same attacks, so don't worry about him. Just focus burning him down along with his little buddies, I think are Cracklaws, and they're no real threat here, nothing major. As long as everyone's doing their roles correctly, you should have no problems in burning these ads down and getting on to the next batch. Now, actually, after you kill those guys, you will go and cross this bridge and come across a different enemy. This one's not really a major problem either. His name is the Reflection of Carbolos, and he is a dumbed-down version of another boss battle that you had fought in a previous dungeon. But this guy does still have his tail whip move, as you'll see as it's coming up right about here, I believe. Where is it? There it is, right there. You see it does hardly any damage. So he is a pushover, not a real threat at all. He doesn't incorporate any of his AoE attacks from his boss battle version. Like I said, he is a dumbed down version of the original one. You'll have no problems with these guys. Just burn them down and his little Banshee friends, and you'll be ready for your first battle, your first boss battle of this new dungeon. Alright, your first boss of this new dungeon is Lugat. Or Lugat. I call him Lugat because it reminds me of nougat, and who don't like nougat? He has several different new attacks, but nothing that's really major that you shouldn't be able to get around. First up is Amorphous Applause, which is a frontal AoE slash attack. And to avoid it, just stand behind him or far enough out in front of him to where you can avoid the attack. Then he will randomly pick a player and cast Hydro Ball on him. And in this case, you want to stack, because that way it will split the damage across all players, making it hurt a little less. Now, as the battle goes on, as you see, it's not that difficult. He will cast Sea Swallows All, which is an attack that will suck you towards him, followed by Concussive Oscillation, which is a 5-ring AoE attack on the ground. Once he pulls you forward, just be ready to move away. Then he'll go back with his Amorphous Applause, which naturally you just want to avoid. And as you go through, it's pretty much going to be cycling through the same attacks as he goes through. He will add a new one eventually that is called Overtow. And all Overtow is a knockback, which, since you can't be knocked off this arena, it doesn't really cause too much of a headache. So just remember, when you're fighting him, he'll cast Amorphous Applause, which is a frontal AoE attack, Hydro Ball, which you need to stack, Sea Swallows All, followed by Concussive Oscillation, where he will pull you towards him and then set off a bunch of AoEs, and Overtow, which is a knockback. And all in all, not really a difficult boss battle. He doesn't really seem to hit majorly too hard, but as long as you can avoid his AoE attacks and everything, you should be able to kick Lugat's butt no problem. Now, the enemies and boss battles in this do drop some fairly decent high-level gear, but if you're someone like me who pretty much maxed your character out before this expansion, it's still going to be weaker than basically your main role's gear already, unless you want to pick it up for some other gear, but a lot of times that's kind of not a nice thing to do. Let the other players take it if they actually need it. Now, as you go along, you will come across these nice little trash mob guys, the albatross characters, and they'll lay down like little lightning AoEs on the ground that you'll just want to avoid. As the lightning on the outside, when it kicks in, it will actually do more damage to you if you actually happen to step in one of those attacks. All in all, these guys really are pushovers, kind of like the other mob battles in this dungeon, so you'll have no problems in burning them down, and they're not difficult at all, fortunately. All in all, though, I really have to say I do really like this dungeon. The production values, the music, the overall art style of it is greatly improved over Heaven's Ward, greatly. The money they put into it really does show. I'm glad they were able to fix that problem that they had with the bottleneck issues, because that was really ticking off a lot of people. Fortunately, people are finally able to truthfully enjoy this game and enjoying it, at least for a while before the actual launch, which I think is tomorrow. Now, as you go up in this area here, let me go ahead and click on these items. I don't need those items. Okay, get up to the next batch of monsters, the sea monks, and they're a pushover too. In fact, as long as you are capable enough, have a good amount of DPS damage, you can actually kite these enemies and group them up for a bigger pull. And all in all, since this was our first time through this dungeon, we decided generally not to do that, just for safety's sake, because we didn't know at the time what sort of attacks the new enemies would bring. But as you can see from this, there's nothing really all that major with these guys. You can actually do a larger pull if you feel safe with it. Okay, and as we get through here, as you can see, I actually had a little issue here when my internet crashed, so edit that out. Now we come to the next batch of ads here. These guys right here, the Skinless Skippers. Now these guys, as you're fighting them, will throw down AoE on the ground that will stay there for a good amount of time. Naturally, like any other AoE in this entire game, just avoid it. As they disappear, they will recast them in new spots, and just move out of the way and you'll be fine. I mean, all in all, these guys really kind of are a joke like the rest of them, so you should have no issues with them as well. Just avoid that dang AoE. Alright, and once you defeat them, you head on down here to the second boss of the dungeon. Yes, I love the way this guy looks. He looks absolutely badass. Alright, it's time to fight the Governor. Yeah, it's the Governor. Now, he does have some interesting new attacks throughout this battle, but nothing, if you don't pay attention and understand, you can avoid getting hurt from. It's not that bad. First off, you'll start with Shadow Flow, which is a floor-wide AoE. Do not stand in it, because if you do, you will actually get stacks of magic vulnerability. Now, after he does do that, he will actually go and cast another move that is called Bloodburst. It is an unavoidable room AoE, and now if you actually stand in the Shadow Flow and get some stacks of magic vulnerability, it makes it to where that enters a lot more damage. Then he will do Enter Night, which will actually pull one character into the middle of the area with a little minor tether. You just want to run away from him to break it and take a little bit of damage, but nothing major. Then he'll cycle through these moves, Shadow Flow and Bloodburst again, based on how much damage you've done to him. Then he'll do a move called Shadow Split. Now, Shadow Split is kind of like Shadow Flow, only thing is he adds some little buddies that are called the Grovelers, I believe they are, and they will place AoEs on the ground along with his Shadow Flow. Just find an open area that is not covered by this to avoid the magic vulnerability stack that will be applied to you. You will have no problem, because as you can see, he generally follows it up with Bloodburst, and if you have a stack on you, you will eat a lot of damage that way. And that's really only the moves that this guy does throughout it. He does the Shadow Flow only like early on, then he'll change it to the Shadow Split, which you just want to avoid, stand in the open areas, Blood Burst, which he follows after Shadow Split, and Enter Night, where he pulls a character in and hurts them. Other than that, that's really the only moveset this guy has. As you see, if you do have a stack, on you from actually being in the Shadow Split, it will make you take a lot of damage when he hits you with Blood Burst. But other than that, as long as the tank's doing his thing and the healer's keeping up and you pay attention to these moves, you should have no problems in avoiding them and not getting too many stacks to where you should be able to survive this battle. No problem. Alright, and as you progress, you'll come across some more ads that you'll have to fight. God, I love this level. Now, you'll notice one of them in particular is different. Yes, it's the Undead Warden from the Palace of the Dead. I actually love that character. I think he looks really, really badass, and I'm glad that they reused the character model. But then again, come on, people. We knew they were going to. They're not going to take the time and money to make a character model and not reuse it about 5 times. But that is classic Final Fantasy trick. Now with him, he will have a frontal AoE that you'll want to avoid. Other than that, he does take a good amount of damage before he goes down. But just avoid his attack and burn down his rotting captives and the Warden Hounds with him. And other than that, you'll have no problems in beating these guys. I just happy to say that they have him come back because he's just cool looking, and with the weird music that they play, it's really, really creepy. I can't wait to see what they do with some of the later levels in this expansion. Now, so far as you progress through this, this dungeon, you shouldn't have had really any major issues. There's really no really earth-shatteringly new forms of mechanics other than some slight variations of them. But all in all, there's nothing really new that you'll really experience until the very end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip at this point to a different group of ads, one that I do need to talk about. Alright, and as you progress through this dungeon, you'll see that it does have a lot of different variation in terms of the overall visual style of it. Now, as we got to this point, as you can see, the tank realized that we're more than capable of handling a larger pool. So he decides to make a larger pool with these Warden's Hounds, which isn't a major deal. But coming up here around the bend is like the last ad before the final boss. And this ad, while not really that difficult other than taking a lot of damage, does have one thing I need to point out so you pay attention. The ad is called the Fleshless Captive, and what it'll do is it will cast a move called Seductive Scream. Now what you want to do is make sure to stun it before it successfully casts that spell, because if it does, it will actually affect all characters. You will rush towards the Fleshless Captive, and it will do an AoE blast that will hurt you pretty significantly. Now all you need to do, like I said, is pay attention to it when it's casting the move Seductive Scream, and make sure to actually stun it. Because like I said, it can be a little bit of a problem here, but nothing major. This is kind of the one point where these Warden's Hounds, since there's just a minor annoyance, do get in the way. Because as you'll see with this video, we do actually fail twice with the Fleshless Captive, to where it does affect us with the the Seductive Scream move. And like I said, it's really easily avoidable as long as you stun it. Alright, this is the final battle of this dungeon. Your final boss is the Lorelei. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's what I'm calling it. As you see, it's a pretty damn neat looking creature here. Kind of reminds me of a evil, dark, twisted, sick version of the Siren. But it does have some different mechanics you'll have to pay attention to. Once you figure them out, it's pretty much a rather easy battle. The first up, what it'll normally cast is Virgin Tears, which lays down AoE on the ground. It'll stay there for a good amount of time. Naturally, you want to avoid it, but the trick is with this battle is after it lays down that, it will do something called Morbid Advance. Now, as you can see by the name, Morbid Advance, it will make your character run forward. So naturally, you want to place your character in a way to where when they are forced to run forward, that they do not run into any of the AoE attacks. Other than that, that's really not that bad. Naturally, it will go and lay down more Virgin's Tears, which will place more AoEs on the ground. And as the battle progresses, she will actually place more and more on the field here. And once again, it'll hit you with another Morbid Advance, where just make sure your character is placed in a way to where they can run forward without running into the AoE. That way, you don't get hurt. Then they'll play Somber Melody, which is a room-wide AoE that will hurt you, and naturally, if you've actually ran through one of the Virgin's Tears AoE, it will make the damage a little bit worse. And other than that, it will cycle through these moves constantly through the battle. But then it will add Morbid Retreat, and this is the same as Morbid Advance. Only difference is you'll run backwards or wherever your character is facing. So once again, depending on the AoE that's on the floor, you want to make sure that you just place yourself in a certain way. So the moves, as they'll progress, it will also cast a move called Void Water 3, which is an AoE blast, normally in the frontal area. It's a very small circular one that you can avoid rather easily. And that's really all this boss does. So just make sure to pay attention for the Virgin Tears, which are AoEs that lay on the ground, and as you progress through the battle, they will add more and more of them. There normally follows it by Morbid Advance or Morbid Retreat. The Morbid Advance, you will move forward. The Morbid Retreat, you will move backwards. And then they will also cast Somber Melody, which is a room-wide AoE attack. As long as you just pay attention to these moves, along with the Void Water 3, you'll have no problems. The only new mechanics, I would say, has to be the Morbid Advance and Morbid Retreat. But it's right in the name of the move. So once they say it, you kind of know what's going to happen, and you can place yourself accordingly to avoid taking damage. And that's pretty much it. And that was the Sirensong Sea, your first dungeon in Stormblood, a level 61 dungeon. It does drop some fairly decent gear. None of the gear it dropped was really worthwhile for me, so I ended up passing on every single one. This is Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I want to thank everyone who subscribes to my channel. I want to thank everybody who watches this video. Please leave a comment below if this was actually helpful in any way or any sort of improvements you think I should have added to this walkthrough. And remember, I gotta always end my videos by saying, have fun, play hard, and remember people, the devil is in the details. Peace out, and I hope you're having fun with Stormblood.